Welcome to this episode of Everything 9000. We're going to be discussing something important today. We're going to be discussing the Borders Bill. I feel like it's something that we need to, even just educate our friendship group, if anything. I've got with me, Amrit. He is a human rights lawyer, and you do some immigration work too. So I'm hoping you can bring in some sort of like your point of view into this. And Ishan, much like Amrit and my parents, your parents were born
in India.
So this should affect. Well, it essentially affects all of us, right?
Yeah, me more so as well, because I was actually born in India.
You were born in India. Yeah. So, what is the Borders Bill? That's just a nickname. We'll put the full, the bill, the name of the bill in the description. But, there's a clause 9, which has created a lot of, uncertainty. And it's something that's almost been just sneaked into law. So what it is, it gives the right to deprive British people of their citizenship without informing them first. And this is something that, just quick background, for something to become law, it needs to go through the House of Commons, and then it needs to go through the House of Lords. Those two comprise Parliament, and once it's passed, it's law, right?
Yeah.
And on the 8th of December,
signs it off.
Yeah, and the 8th of December, so that was only a couple of days ago.
It passed the second reading. So it passed the second reading. It's now at the House of Lords, basically.
It's now at the House of Lords. Yeah. So it's getting there. And from what you were saying, once it gets to the Lords,
well, I don't think they're going to come back with too many amendments. Normally, so once it goes from the House of Commons, so that's the MPs and stuff, it goes to the House of Lords, that's the peers. They make amendments, they make their own amendments, but with things like these, sometimes they just rush through. So I don't think there's going to be any problems with it getting passed through House of Lords, so, as it is at the moment.
This clause 9 that we're talking about, what it is the Home Secretary only needs to have reasonable grounds for believing that a person could acquire foreign citizenship abroad. That would leave a person stateless. And just some context for the viewer here. If you are left stateless, i.e. if the British government tomorrow revokes your British citizenship and you're stateless, that's against international law, right?
Stateless basically means that you don't belong to any country, like you don't have a nationality of any country, like you're stateless.
Right, and whilst invoking this clause, the Home Secretary only needs to, reasonably believe that you'll get another citizenship for them to then make you stateless. So that doesn't even mean you've firmed up, I'm going to be Indian.
Sounds a little bit scary.
Yeah, I mean, well, what is it? It's for, protection of borders.
It's not really. I hate that. The reality of it is that what they're trying to do is, like, since the Tories have come in since 2010, they've just been tightening that immigration screw so much. Like they've been trying, like, it's gone from hostile environment. Everybody knows what hostile environment is like, where they're making it as hard as possible for immigrants to live, to now actually just full blown like war against migrants and immigrants. And this is what it is. It makes you people, like, people get so I got citizenship in this country in 2011 or 12, I think. At that moment, you got British citizenship and you feel, I'm secure now. I feel pretty secure. But now with this bill, all of that security, all of that safety, it's for nothing. It's gone out the window. Nobody feels like, I don't feel secure as a British citizen anymore. Like, my citizenship isn't strong as some white guys, some named Joe Blogs or something, for example.
But this bill doesn't directly affect you, does it? It's for the interest of national security.
Where does that stop though? National security, like, they put national security in anything, right? So there was one stat that I was looking at actually, right? About this, quite interesting. So like, basically, before, people would get citizenship, but they could revoke it, but that was only in very rare cases. They would only revoke it in cases where, for example, it related to terrorism charges, something like that, right? Okay, it would be very, very rare. So until 2007, this is what one of the stats says. Until 2017, the number of people who were stripped of their citizenship was fewer than 20 a year. In recent years, it's been as high as more than 100. So can you see how there's been a huge increase?
And the thing is, when something is, it's got sensitive data, it's in the interest of national security, these bodies, they're not releasing any information.
Yeah. But can we argue that, in the most recent years, the UK has been more susceptible to terror threats?
No, not really.
Because it's not just terror threats too. There was a recent thing in the British seas with France migrants coming in, and their justification is that's why we need to sort of.
Okay, so that was the other part of this bill, is basically more about like dealing with asylum migrants and stuff. So like people, how they come in. So the other thing that this bill is basically saying that is that if you come in certain routes, for example, through the channel, right? Okay, yeah, what they will do is they will not let you claim asylum, or what they will do is charge you on a criminal charge. Now that's huge. You know, these people are escaping, you know, like escaping violence, escaping like, you know, dictators from wherever they're from, Syria, you know, all these kind of places, and they're risking their lives crossing the channel, you know, to get into the UK, to get the sanctuary. And as soon as you get here, you know, you go through the whole journey. As soon as you get here, you're charged with a criminal offence for crossing, crossing the channel. And again, that's huge, because I've had so many clients who've crossed through the channel. You know, the UK doesn't have a safe route for you to come into the UK as an asylum seeker, right? It just doesn't. So that's why people will risk their lives on a dinghy to cross the channel. They'll risk their lives. They'll try and sneak onto a lorry. I've seen people, like I've heard people of like climbing under a lorry, right? Okay, yeah, and like placing themselves very near the tires, because like lorries have these little boards by the tires and stuff. People literally fit themselves on there, hide under the lorry without the driver being seen and stuff, and then just, you know, the lorries will get on a boat and stuff, and that's how they come into the UK.
So I've seen loads of Instagram posts, literally from pages and pages now, with hundreds of thousands of likes. You know, I even saw people from my school who I wouldn't have expected to share this, and you know, in a way, it made me feel proud that they were like protecting this. You know, posts that are saying there's 6 million people in the UK with an ethnic minority background. It's affecting all of them. How is it affecting us?
It's affecting us. Look, okay, so the biggest worry about this thing as well is that this bill basically says that if they revoke your citizenship, okay, yeah, they don't have to inform you of that, right? That's the biggest thing. Like whenever somebody's been deprived of their citizenship, what the Home Office will do is send you a letter saying you've been deprived of your citizenship. Here's your right to appeal, and so and so and so. So you go to the court, you go to the first tribunal, you know, the Immigration and Asylum Chamber courts. You go there, you oppose their reasons for depriving of citizenship, and you stand a very good chance of winning your citizenship back. In cases involving terrorism, there's a special court for that. It's called SEAC. I can't remember the full name for it, but basically in there, what you would do is you would hire, like you would be given a barrister who would then argue a case for you on your behalf if it relates to terrorism charges, for example, and you still get given a fair shot at getting your citizenship back. Now with this one, if you're not told your citizenship's been revoked, how are you ever going to appeal that? So you could basically be sitting outside the UK, and then the moment you try to get back to the UK, you realize, oh shit, my passport's not valid anymore, and you're stuck up wherever you are.
Question though, how would something like that seriously affect someone like me? Like I was born in the UK, yeah.
It applies to you if your parents were born in India.
But still, it's a serious question for me and for many probably watching this. Should I be worried? I pay my taxes over here. Why were they trying to send me back?
You know, are you trying to make that argument of saying like, if I've done nothing wrong, I should be worried? Is that the argument you're making?
I'm just seriously
I think that's a very silly argument. That's what, like, you know, it comes down to, like, you know, when people on about, like, you know, the whole thing about government monitoring people's phones and stuff, and people always come back with this stupid argument saying, well, you know, if you've done nothing wrong, you've got nothing to be fearful of. I think that's it's not a good argument to make. Like, you know, if you're not doing anything wrong, then why should you be worried? It's not that. It's the fact that there exists this power that, you know, the Home Office...
It's law.
It's law,
legal.
Right? The Home Office act, like, unreasonably all the time. You know, I deal with these cases. The amount of stuff that the Home Office, like, how unreasonably, how unlawfully they act is unbelievable. And the only chance you stand of correcting that is in the courts, when you take the Home Office to the courts. Now, you're telling me the Home Office, majority of the times, who make wrong decisions, majority of the times, unlawful decisions, majority of the times, make a decision and you don't even know about it, and you can't even do anything about that. How are you going to justify that?
And, you know, okay, to us now it might seem extreme. It's far-fetched. We're living in, you know, this society. It's fine. We've got democracy. Democracy in history has proved to be very weak and fragile, right? I know, okay, Hitler in Germany. Let's take this. Okay, yeah, extreme example here. Don't beat me down for this.
This is what I used to say. You used to beat me down and saying you're extreme.
No, but let's take it, right? You know, Germany lost World War One. One big devastation that, you know, Germany with their own humiliation. Just the public in general, they were just feeling anger, just hatred towards, like, their leaders for, like, you know, leaving the war and almost, like, losing it, right? Then, you know, the Great Depression hits in 1929. Another big event. We've just had COVID. Big events happen, right? That literally shake your life as you know it. Then all of a sudden, someone who's really right-wing, got really right-wing messages, someone like Hitler, someone like, I don't know, today, Nigel Farage, who we could never conceive would be in power. But the next thing where he's got under 3% of parliamentary votes, 2 years later he's got 18%. And then he eventually becomes, chancellor with 36% of the votes in parliament. Someone like that can get to power really quickly. Democracy is not as secure as you think.
It's
right?
never secure. It's
and,
never has been.
Mark Twain famously said, history does not repeat itself, but it does rhyme. It's not inconceivable. You have to sometimes do think, what are the possibilities? And the possibility is, the law will say, right, that a citizenship can be revoked without informing you.
For what reason, though?
It says as long as the Home, the Secretary considers reasonable, right?
Why
It doesn't
should
even define why it should be.
No. By the way, I'm not posing an argument. I'm asking for a question.
So currently, Clause 9 can be invoked if it's in the interest of national security.
Okay. But
in the interest of the relationship between the UK and another country.
Okay.
Otherwise, in the public interest. And
Public
these
interest
are down to the discretion of the Home Secretary.
Public interest one's a bit blurry to me, but the first
public
two,
interest is the biggest one, the
But
widest
these
one.
become even more blurry when someone like a Nigel Farage would come into power.
Yeah.
Right?
But I ain't gonna
But not even Nigel Farage. Forget Nigel Farage, but even Priti Patel. She's making a run. This was something that was broken this morning. Priti Patel is actually going to be making a run for the leadership of the Tory party and also to become PM. Because right now, Boris Johnson's on very shaky ground.
Very shaky ground. I mean, a lot of people are saying the Christmas party scandal that happened recently.
You were saying it's a distraction tactic.
Well, a lot of people are saying that was a distraction. The distraction itself is crazy.
Yeah.
The fact that our government is lying to having a party whilst the whole country's in lockdown.
Yeah, I think
that's just a distraction we accept now.
People can't be I think I've seen on Instagram a bit people a Christmas party shaking you up, this isn't happening. But I think people are kind of trivialised the whole Christmas party thing. That's huge.
And what was the Windrush scandal?
Oh, the Windrush scandal was basically after the Second World War. So that was something huge that again this Tory government had basically tried to do. That was the biggest, the first biggest blunder they had done. This was under Theresa May actually when she was Home Secretary. So the Windrush scandal was after the Second World War, in the 60s and late 50s, 60s and 70s, a lot of Jamaican, Caribbean people were invited over to rebuild the country. A bit how Indians were invited over, kind of welcomed. There was a lot of migrations from Asia, from Caribbean countries. People came in, and the whole Windrush, actually the name comes from, there was a ship called Windrush that brought those migrants over. So those people came into that country. They were kids, a lot of them, right? They came into this country. They went to school, their parents started working, they started working, now they've grown old, now they're in the 60s and 50s and 70s and stuff, and all of a sudden, but they've always been here under the security that they're British, but they'd never actually had a document to show that because they just got on with their lives. They didn't think they needed these documents, they didn't think they needed a passport, and all of a sudden come 2010 post that, the Tories, they start sending letters out to these Jamaican nationals. Well, I say Jamaican nationals, they should really have been British. Saying that you've been here overstaying in the UK for the last 50 years. This is you're going to be deported. Here's your removal directions, and it kind of just snowballed. It just snowballed. There was so many, and then all of a sudden the Guardian caught on, and the Guardian made a huge issue of it, and that's when the government backtracked and said, "Oh, sorry, actually, yeah, you're right. You are British, right? Okay, yeah." But it realized that so long after it already deported so many people that had been in this country for 50, 60 years. And these people, a lot of them had worked for the NHS. There was that guy had worked for went to school here, worked for the NHS, and then was actually, getting a pension. And the moment he was getting a pension, that's when they deported him. And they brought him back. They had to bring him back as well. But there were so many of those people they deported and then had to bring back. But then, they admitted, okay, well, we made a mistake, but then there was this whole compensation agreed, we'll give you money for that. But that was
the amount of blunders. You know what? I've never really cared for politics. I don't get involved. It's just I've never had any interest in politics. Right? I know you've always been very politically minded and you take interest in what's going on. Ishan, I think you're like me. You don't really care.
Yeah.
Right. But recently, a lot of these continuous events from this government has led me to believe, the country's in a bit of a shit show. The way it's been run, it's a bit of a shit show. There's scandal after scandal. We're accepting it. Dominic Cummings did this. Boris Johnson did this. Priti Patel did this.
It's just normal.
To be honest, it's smart from Boris getting Priti Patel, a person of colour, to bring this bill in.
That's a whole debate in itself. That's something that doesn't even sit right with me.
Priti Patel, she's one of those endangered with this bill. Honestly, that whitewashed woman, man, oh my God, there's no words.
But this isn't something that's unthinkable. You think of Uganda, They removed all Indians.
Uganda, that's because they had that crazy.
I mean, didn't they remove Priti Patel's own parents?
Yeah, I think her parents are from Africa. You know, Rishi Sunak's parents are from Africa. They're from that side.
I mean, you know, okay, we think fine. The point is, this is a first step in a very draconian, arbitrary law. It just gives absurd power in a very obscure, grey area. You know,
it's open to abuse. Basically, it's open to abuse.
Open to abuse. Today, we don't think much of it. Tomorrow, you know, an amendment comes in that makes it legal to use that clause for any other reason.
No, right? I mean, it doesn't even need another reason. Like public interest, you know how wide that is. What is public interest? You tell me what is in the public interest. Is it in the public interest?
You know what the saving grace is? A lot of I think I can speak on behalf of a lot of immigrant families here. You know, a lot of Indians, Jamaicans, Nigerians, loads, Chinese, even dual nationals from Germany, France. Right, immigrant. I can say this: our parents have whipped us into shape. We would get beatings if we weren't getting good school marks. We're not doing good, you know, getting good jobs. It's a joke almost in the Indian culture. If your son's not a doctor, lawyer, or a dentist, he's a failure.
Yeah.
Right? But our parents, they weren't doctors, lawyers, or, you know, all of this. They worked shifts, right? They had no holidays. They didn't have holidays how we know them at work. Oh, you get 25 days off. They worked 7 days a week, literally. 7 days a week. You've said on past podcasts, if your mom has a day off, she feels as though it's a day lost. They don't go on holidays. They'll probably, our parents went to India once or twice a year.
And that too to meet family. It wasn't a vacation.
To meet family. That was their holidays. They didn't have the lifestyle that we have now, and our lifestyle that, you know, generations of British people have had. You know, so these immigrants that need to be removed, right, have actually sacrificed a lot for this country. And, you know, the Prime Minister always comes into the Gurdwara for Sikhs and says, you know, the Sikh community does this, you know, really great, hardworking. Fine, that's great. The perception's being built, you know. Our ancestors, our parents' generation or the generation before, they've worked hard to build this image, you know, for immigrants in this country, right? But this might change. Yeah, I know. You're not. you're a totally different kettle of fish now. So tomorrow, if we start becoming a burden on the country, then what?
Then I'm out.
Listen, look, I'm telling you one thing now. Yeah, any person that votes Tory, right? Yeah, any white person that votes Tory already thinks you're a burden on the country. Let me make that very clear to you. There are two kinds of people that vote Tory.
That's a bit of a bold statement.
No, I'm being honest with you.
There are also brown people that vote Tory, right?
No. I'm telling you, there are two types of people that vote Tory, either millionaires or racist people. So if you find yourself voting for Tory, you're racist. And that's like one thing I believe in. You cannot justify, if you're a working class person, you cannot in any way justify voting for Tory other than the fact that you're sick of seeing immigrants on the streets as the Tories have been beating that into you for the last fucking 10 years. I'll tell you that now. That's my firm belief. There are only two types of people: millionaires.
You know, at the moment, you think it's unthinkable. You know,
if you're saying to me you're not racist and you voted Tory, you need a fucking deep look into yourself.
We're thinking of the extreme situation here. Oh my God, this law's going to pass. We're all going to be sent back to India, right? You know, I think there's more to it at the moment. The population in the UK as of 2020 was 67 million. You know, I've said, you know, people of ethnic minority backgrounds, or, you know, that don't have pure
make up 10% of that population.
Yeah, 6 million, so it makes up 10%. And, you know, it's a lot of, like we've just said, Indians are doctors.
No, it's not even like they're going to remove 6 million. What it means, okay, look, for example, I hate the government, yeah? Like, I hate Priti Patel, I hate Boris Johnson. Imagine, like, I become famous and they realize, like, oh, I hate them so much. What's stopping them revoking my citizenship? They'll just say it's on public interest and they don't even have to tell me. You know, if I take them to court, they'll just say national security and stuff. They don't even have to show any evidence against me.
It's in the public interest.
So, like, you know, how this is arbitrary.
These are the things we don't care about this until it actually affects us.
This bill also limits protests as well, by the way. Did you know that? You know, we're focusing on nationality. Nationality is a huge part of this, like, bill right here. But also, as I said, dealing with migrants, asylum seekers, how they kind of like dealt with. That's like a huge change it's making. And then also, I don't know if it's within this bill. I think it is within this bill. But Priti Patel's been trying to curb, like, the powers of, like, you know, your right to protest for ages. And that, I'm sure this also contains that.
Yeah. Well, look, you know, the thing about this, I sent this topic into one of the group chats we've got with a few of our friends, and I didn't get much back at all.
Yeah.
And now I didn't know if that was because people were fearful of, they didn't want to say the wrong thing, or they didn't know much about it. But speaking to a lot of my friends directly, they didn't know much about this.
Yeah.
I didn't know much about this. I researched into it. Amrit, I spoke to you 2-3 days ago. I said, look, you're actually a lawyer in this field. What do you know about it? And to be honest, you hadn't looked too much into it too. So, the whole motive behind this podcast was, let's just raise some awareness on this. I would really urge you to do some research around the topic. There's some petitions floating around. Maybe you want to sign one.
I was just about to say there's a petition on the Parliament website. So it's got 208,000 signatures so far out of the 100,000. So
one positive light I do want to show, like I said, I saw some people that I went to school with. They shared stories, and they were really sticking up. They were like, look, this is disgusting what's happening. So, it's nice to see, humanity coming together at this point. Hopefully, it shouldn't need to. Stupid laws like this shouldn't go under the radar. We should know about it. And,
one thing that baffles me the most is like this government, it's like the impunity, with what they just break laws. Like this very bill is actually against international standards.
Countries have criticised it.
International human rights. It's against that. You can't make somebody stateless. That's international law. If for example, with the
how Shamima Begum is stateless.
Yeah. So Shamima.
Are we all going to be Shamima Begums?
Yeah, you're gonna be stuck out in India.
But I ain't done what she done.
No. But nobody needs to do that anymore.
You're going to tell deems you to have done something against the public interest.
You know what? You're going to be in India, yeah. You're going to be at fucking numbers at airport. They won't let you board.
and bear in mind, that's given that they'll give you citizenship.
India won't give you citizenship. They'll be like, no, you're not Indian.
Right. Anyway, I think that's enough. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Let us know in the comments what you think. Serious topic. Let us know what you think. Maybe if we've got something wrong, let us know in the comments. Peace.